And what is time boxing then? Time boxing is actually a kind of fixed duration event. So that's, again, very, very critical. Time boxing in Agile is like the mantra. That's the reason why you have so much of success with Agile products, Agile projects, as opposed to the waterfall. Because in waterfall, your time box is actually like 2 years, as I was giving you an example of my project about good 15 years ago. So we had this requirements. I spent about a good 5 months writing on the requirements, functional requirement specification document, getting sign off. And the development did not start till about the 8th month of the project start, which was a really, really difficult thing to even imagine within Agile. So with Agile, what is happening is you're actually getting the development started pretty much in the first few weeks of the project start. So it's quite opposed to what you have in the waterfall, where the project would not start, the real work would not start much till about the first few weeks and months. And then the customer could actually get to see their project. In the case of my project, I was giving example of the candidate assessment. That project, the first delivery went out after 14 months of the project start. So the customer could not even get to see how the first page looks like and what kind of thing. They're only looking at the documents, reading through the 500, 600 page requirements document, functional requirement specification, again, 300 page architecture document, and a 200 page high level design document, and perhaps another 10, 15 different documents of low level design document, data model, looking at the diagrams. But it actually took them 14 months to actually get to see the first developed page of the product. And you know what? By that time, they said, this is not working because it's not what we wanted, what we needed. So instead of that, if we adopt the same approach, we actually go with the Agile way, then you're able to deliver that not in 14 months, but perhaps in the next 3 weeks or a month, you can actually deliver at least one page, if not the whole product, right? So that's why we're actually kind of time boxed this, the example that we're working on, right? The mobile accessories website, e-commerce website to sell the mobile accessories, your screen protectors. What we are doing now is to actually time box. Instead of saying that, I'll give it in 2022, what we'll do is we'll say by November, I'll have the catalog ready. By February, I'll have the shopping cart ready. By April, I'll get you you can actually pay online. The customers can pay online through their credit card. But by June, they can also pay using their MasterCard. Their PayPal integration is done, and they can actually send their checks as well, right? So you're trying to add more and more features and functionality to make it easy for your customers. And that is not done all in one go, but actually kind of time boxed. Say this November, February, you can actually get to see that it's all done in a way that is the releases are phased out. And within the context of it, you can't just say that I will work till the end of the release and then deliver it. So what we do is we'll actually have the development team kind of work even smaller time boxes. So typically in Scrum, what we call as a sprint is basically a time box. So a sprint is for, let's say, 3 weeks on an average. Within 3 weeks, the first 3 weeks, let's say that item details page is done, right? So they will work on this. They come up with the item details page. You've got the item photo, item title, description, blah, blah, blah. You can actually get to see the screen protector, and perhaps even the same way you can have another item page for the case, mobile case, for example. So you can actually get to see the 360-degree view of that. So what we're talking about is, going these sprints. So by the end of 2 or 3 sprints, you can have item details page, you can have items list page, the catalog page. And by the end of 3rd sprint, you actually can have the whole of the integration, all these pages integrated, working well. When you click on the list, when you click on one particular row, it would then open a details page of that item, the screen protector, and showing the photo and 360-degree view and the details description, everything else. So that is actually the success of a time box. So it's not done all at once, but you're actually doing in small little, kind of small little milestones. At the end of these small little milestones, you're actually delivering something. So by the end of November, let's say you completed, let's say 2 or 3 sprints, you actually have got the release ready, and that is potentially delivered to the customers. So important to note is this is what we call as a sprint time box, is basically 2 to 4 weeks. I mean, I did work on projects which was as less as 1 week for one sprint to as big as 3 weeks for one sprint. So it really depends. There's no hard and fast rule. Scrum says that between 2 weeks to 4 weeks is a good ideal time for one sprint. So your time box in Scrum is basically between 2 to 4 weeks. So you need to understand this, very important. If there is anything that is not done, so for example, in a sprint, the sprint backlog says that about 6 stories, 6 items within that, out of which there are 5 stories and 1 is a defect that need to be fixed. So that's what we need to actually do it in the next sprint, let's say, and it starts Monday. And by the end of 2 weeks, which is by the end of the sprint, come November 1st week, we could only complete 4 stories out of the 5, and we did fix the defect, so that's done. But the 5th story that is not done is actually not carried forward to the next sprint, which is what most of the popular perception is. It's actually kind of, again, goes back into the product backlog because it was not done, it was not completed, it was not delivered. Very, very important. And then the product owner and also the business team would actually kind of take a stock at that and see if it is important, if it's really that important and that urgent to be then pushed into the next sprint, or they might think that, you know what, let's not worry about it, we'll do it next time. So for example, in the context of the e-commerce website, if we have decided that the first release is the catalog, and that is by November, going by November, and by February we're planning to actually deliver the shopping cart functionality. You know what? December we get some major defects reported by the customer saying that I cannot see this item. It's actually saying no item available. I cannot see anything there. It is showing blank. There's no image. And when I click on this, nothing is happening. All of these there are so many defects being reported from the customers, let's say. So you know what, then you can actually prioritize those items, the defects and the bugs to be fixed on an immediate basis. You can actually push this release of shopping cart to some other time. So what you do, you reprioritize. You actually kind of look at this and then say, let's work on this. These are important and urgent things that need to be worked on right now. So the other things can wait. The new functionality of shopping cart can wait because these are more important showstoppers here. So the product owner and the team could actually decide that as the important thing. And by February, you know what? We might not be in a position to deliver the shopping cart, but fair enough. We have got more important, more urgent things to be sorted out, which is what we did. So we have reprioritized. So Agile gives you that flexibility to keep changing your direction, to keep changing your priorities, depending on the customer's needs, depending on the business needs. It's not driven by somebody else. It's not driven by the whims and fancies of some people, but it's actually driven by the needs of the customer. The market wants that. That means that they need it so badly that we need to fix it. We need to work on that. Let's do that because it's actually driven by the customers. It's not some decision taken by somebody in the corner office, right? So that's the whole idea about Agile. So very important again to understand this. It is not automatic, fallback. Automatically it just gets pushed off if something is not done. No, it's going back. If some items in the backlog, in the sprint backlog, have not been done, we're going to talk about the definition of done in a couple of slides later. So if there are about 6, as we discussed, if 1 or 2 items are not done, not delivered in that sprint, by the end of that sprint, then they actually go back to the backlog and they get reprioritized again. And as we see that the sprints are of very short duration, you're not talking about months or years, it's easy for us to plan and estimate because whatever estimates, we talked about how we estimate, right? We talk about story points, a planning poker, and using those planning pokers and things like that. We can come up with the story points. We understand how it is done because there is a discussion, conversations happening between the team and the product owner and the business analysts. So the team is in a position to understand the requirements. Clearly, they engage in the conversation. They know how to implement it because they're talking only about those 5, 10. They're not talking about hundreds and thousands of requirements. They're talking about those 5 items that need to be done by end of November and by end of October or first week of November. So it is really, really unusual for the teams not to deliver something unless it is really complex or whatever. They could not see the complexity of that. They could not assess the size of a particular story. Usually, it works well. That's why the time boxing is very, very crucial. And then product owner refines, again, very important that The product backlog is actually being refined by the product owner. They do the prioritization, they do the reshuffling of items back and forth, and they actually take the priorities in terms of what should be done when. And so essentially the product backlog is groomed and refined and managed by the product owner, right? So they do this, and then they say that, can you take these 15 items as the priority for the next sprint? So then what the team does is to basically look at the development team would look at those 15 items, and then they do the estimates. They come up with, okay, this is the overall size of these set of story points. This is the effort that is required. And out of this 15, I think we can take these first 7 because we've got the technology, we've got the database ready, we've got some screens ready. I think we've got more requirements clear for this 7 instead of the 8. So we'll just pick these 7. So they can actually drop those rest of the 8 before the sprint planning starts. So sprint planning is the time when we actually kind of decide that this is going to be the scope for this particular sprint. These 7 items would be the would be delivered by the end of the sprint, right? So that's a call which can be taken by the development team, not the product owner, because they understand the intricacies, they understand the implications and the dependencies, the constraints, and everything else about the implementation of that set of stories. So out of the 12 or 15 stories that the product owner recommends for this, they would again filter it out based on this. They might actually accept all those 15 and say, yeah, we'll go ahead with this. Or they could actually come up and say that, you know what, we have understood that we can only deliver these 7 based on our estimates. Or there may be sometimes it can happen that they say that, you know what, we've estimated this 15, we still have some more capacity. We can do this 15 plus something else. So give us more. You know why it happens in Agile? Because they love to work and they love to deliver because of the ownership. It's quite unlike the traditional waterfall where somebody else is asking them to do some work. Somebody else is giving them the deadlines. In Agile, the development team does the estimates, they commit to the estimates, they do the work, they deliver, they own pretty much everything. So they're happy to actually kind of take more and more work if they have the capacity, right? So that's the whole idea of Agile. Again, we were talking about the convergence assessment and the divergence assessment and convergence, right? We were talking about this de-scoping, scoping, and re-scoping. Again, that's the whole idea of time boxing coming into picture.